Right now, beneath your feet, there's a war happening. Millions of soldiers are dying. Slaves are being captured. A dictator is giving birth to thousands of babies. And nobody's getting paid. Welcome to the world of ants. The most organized, most brutal, and most successful society on planet Earth. Today, we're going to spend 24 hours inside their world. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll never look at these tiny creatures the same way again. Because what you're about to discover is going to blow your mind. These aren't just bugs. They're warriors, farmers, slavers, architects, and undertakers. They've been running the most advanced civilization on Earth for 140 million years. And compared to them, humans are just getting started. So buckle up. This is going to get wild. Let's start our day at 5 a.m. The sun isn't even up yet, but inside the ant colony, thousands of workers are already awake. No alarm clocks. No complaining about Monday mornings. They just wake up and immediately start working. But here's the first crazy thing you need to know. Not all ants wake up. In fact, about 20 to 25% of the entire colony does absolutely nothing. Nothing. They don't gather food. They don't dig tunnels. They don't fight wars. They just exist. Scientists call them the lazy caste, and to this day, nobody knows why they're there. Some researchers think they're backup workers in case of emergencies. Others think they might be reserves who only activate when the colony is under extreme stress. But the most hilarious theory? They might just be freeloaders, the ant equivalent of that roommate who never does dishes. Imagine working your entire life while Steve over there just chills in the corner doing absolutely nothing. That's ant society for you. Now let's talk about the workers who actually do their jobs. These ants wake up with one mission: survive another day. And their to-do list is insane. They need to find food, expand the nest, take care of babies, defend against enemies, remove dead bodies, and communicate with thousands of other ants. All before breakfast, which, by the way, is going to be absolutely disgusting. But we'll get to that. The first task of the morning is checking on the queen. Oh, the queen. Let me tell you about her life because it's both luxurious and absolutely horrifying at the same time. She lives in the largest chamber of the entire colony. She's surrounded by servants who feed her, clean her, and basically worship her. Sounds amazing, right? Wrong, because she can never leave that chamber. Ever. From the moment she becomes queen until the day she dies, she's trapped in that room. And her only job, her only purpose in life, is to lay eggs. Thousands and thousands of eggs. Every single day. For 20 to 30 years straight. Imagine being pregnant for 30 years. Nonstop. No breaks. No vacations. No spa days. Just endless baby making. The workers treat her like a goddess, but she's basically a prisoner in a golden cage. Her body is so swollen with eggs that she can barely move. She's 3 times the size of a normal ant, and 90% of her body is just egg production machinery. Some queens can lay up to 300,000 eggs per year. That's over 800 eggs per day. Per day. The human record for most children is 69 kids over a lifetime, and we think that's insane. The queen ant does that in a month and a half. And she never stops. The workers surround her, constantly feeding her, removing eggs, and making sure she's healthy. Because if the queen dies, the entire colony dies. No queen, no babies. No babies, no future. So she's the most important and most trapped individual in the entire colony. It's the ultimate cruel irony. By 6 a.m., the workers have checked on the queen, and now it's time to deal with the nursery. This is where all the babies are kept. And when I say babies, I mean thousands upon thousands of larvae and pupae in various stages of development. The workers have to feed them, clean them, move them to areas with the right temperature and humidity, and protect them from threats. Ant larvae are helpless. They can't move, they can't feed themselves, they can't do anything. They're basically tiny, wiggling sacks of future potential. The workers feed them by, you guessed it, vomiting partially digested food into their mouths. Because that's how ants do everything. With vomit. It's their universal solution. Some larvae will become workers. Some will become soldiers. And a very lucky few will develop wings and become future queens and males for mating flights. But here's the weird part. What a larva becomes isn't determined by genetics. It's determined by how much food it gets. If the workers feed a larva a lot, it becomes bigger and might develop into a queen. If they give it less food, it becomes a worker. The colony literally decides your entire future based on portion control. Imagine if human society worked like that. Sorry, Timmy, you only get half a sandwich today, so you're going to be a janitor for life. It's 7 a.m. now, and the colony is in full swing. This is rush hour in the ant world, and it's complete chaos. Thousands of ants are moving in every direction. Some are heading out to forage for food. Others are bringing materials back to expand the nest. Soldiers are patrolling. Nurses are tending to babies. And somewhere in the middle of all this, those lazy 20% are still doing absolutely nothing. Let's follow a forager ant. Her name is, well, ants don't have names, but let's call her Patricia. Patricia's job is simple. Leave the nest, find food, bring it back. But the execution is anything but simple. First, Patricia has to navigate. And she doesn't have Google Maps. She doesn't have a compass. She doesn't even have good eyesight. Most ants are nearly blind. So how does she find her way? She uses chemical trails. When an ant leaves the nest, it releases pheromones from its body. These are chemical signatures that create an invisible trail. Other ants can smell these trails and follow them. It's like leaving breadcrumbs, except the breadcrumbs are your own body odor and they evaporate after a few hours. But here's where it gets genius. When Patricia finds food, she releases a different chemical. This one says, "Hey everyone, jackpot over here." Other ants smell this victory pheromone and rush to the location. The more ants that find the food, the stronger the chemical trail becomes. It's a positive feedback loop. The good stuff gets amplified, the bad routes get forgotten. Humans invented the internet to share information quickly. Ants invented chemical highways 100 million years ago. And honestly, their system has fewer bugs. Pun intended. Patricia ventures out into the dangerous world. And I mean dangerous. For an ant, the outside is a nightmare. There are spiders waiting to ambush. Birds looking for a snack. Other ant colonies ready to kill intruders. Parasitic fungi that can literally take over their brains and turn them into zombies. Yes, zombie ants are real, and they're absolutely terrifying. But we'll get to that horror show later. Patricia travels up to 200 meters away from the colony. For a creature that's only 5 millimeters long, that's like a human walking 25 kilometers just to get groceries. And she's doing this while carrying supplies, avoiding predators, and memorizing the route back home. She uses the sun's position to navigate. She counts her steps. She remembers visual landmarks. Scientists did an experiment where they put ants on stilts. Actual tiny stilts to make their legs longer. And you know what happened? The ants got lost on the way back because their step count was off. They walked past their nest because their internal pedometer said, "Not there yet." That's how precise their navigation is. Now let's talk about what Patricia is carrying. Ants can lift 20 times their own body weight with their jaws alone. But when they work together, they can move objects 50 times heavier. Imagine if you could casually pick up a car and carry it home. That's an ant's everyday reality. Their strength comes from their size. As creatures get smaller, their strength-to-weight ratio increases. It's a physics thing. But still, watching an ant carry a dead grasshopper 5 times its size is like watching a human drag a bus down the street. It's objectively insane. Patricia finds a crumb. A glorious, beautiful crumb of bread that some human dropped. To her, this is like discovering a mountain of food. She grabs it, releases her "I found food" pheromone, and starts the long journey back. But she's not alone anymore. Within minutes, dozens of other ants arrive, following her chemical trail. They swarm the crumb, break it into smaller pieces, and form a convoy back to the nest. It's organized chaos. No one's in charge, but everyone knows what to do. It's like a flash mob, except everyone's carrying groceries and no one's dancing. By 8 a.m., Patricia and her team have successfully brought the crumb back to the colony. It's time for the most disgusting meal of the day. All right, it's time to talk about how ants eat. And I'm warning you right now, this is going to ruin your appetite. Ants practice something called trophallaxis. It's a fancy science word that means mutual vomiting. When one ant has food, it doesn't just share a bite. No, it eats the food, partially digests it in its stomach, and then regurgitates it directly into another ant's mouth. Mouth to mouth. Vomit transfer. And this isn't a rare thing. This is how they feed each other constantly. The foragers vomit into the mouths of the workers. The workers vomit into the mouths of the nurses. The nurses vomit into the mouths of the larvae. It's a never-ending chain of communal upchucking. Why do they do this? Because it's efficient. The food is already partially broken down, making it easier to digest. It also allows ants to share food with colony members who can't leave the nest, like the queen and the babies. And it helps distribute nutrients evenly across the colony. But still, imagine if human restaurants worked like this. You order a pizza, the waiter chews it up, and then spits it into your mouth. Bon appetit. Actually, don't think about that. You'll never enjoy pizza again. Here's another wild fact. Ants have two stomachs. One is for them, and one is for the colony. The social stomach stores food that can be shared with others. The personal stomach is for their own nutrition. So they're literally walking around with a communal food bank inside their bodies. It's like having a built-in Tupperware container, except it's made of internal organs. Some ants called honeypot ants take this to the extreme. Certain workers become living storage containers. They eat so much sugary liquid that their abdomens swell up like balloons. They become so big they can't move. They just hang from the ceiling of the nest like living honey jars, and other ants come to them when they need food. They sacrifice their mobility to become a pantry. That's dedication. While the adults are busy vomiting into each other, the larvae are getting fed the same way. Worker ants chew up food and deliver it directly into the larva's mouth. The larvae can't refuse. They can't complain about the taste. They just accept whatever pre-chewed slop gets delivered and hope for the best. By 9 a.m., breakfast is done. Everyone's been fed. The queen has eaten. The larvae are full. The workers have refueled. And now it's time for the real work to begin. Mid-morning is construction time. The colony is constantly expanding, and the workers are the architects, engineers, and construction crew all rolled into one. An ant colony isn't just a random pile of dirt. It's a sophisticated underground city with multiple levels, chambers, and tunnels. There are nurseries for babies, storage rooms for food, graveyards for the dead, climate-controlled chambers for fungus farms, emergency exits, ventilation systems. It's more organized than most human cities. The workers dig using their mandibles and legs. They scoop up tiny grains of soil, carry them to the surface, and dump them outside. That anthill you see in your yard? That's the excavated material from hundreds of hours of digging. It's basically their version of a construction dumpster. Some ant colonies go deep, really deep. The deepest ant colony ever discovered was over 8 meters underground. That's 26 feet. For a creature that's half a centimeter long, that's like humans digging a tunnel 1,600 meters deep. And they do it without machines, without blueprints, without OSHA safety regulations. How do they know where to dig? Stigmergy, another fancy science word. It means they respond to environmental cues and the work of other ants. One ant digs a little bit. Another ant smells the fresh dirt and continues digging in the same direction. Gradually, without any central planning, complex tunnel systems emerge. It's organized chaos that somehow works perfectly. Different chambers have different purposes. The queen's chamber is always the deepest and most protected. The nurseries are kept at specific temperatures, so they're moved up or down depending on the weather. Food storage is kept in dry, cool areas. Graveyards are placed far away from living quarters to prevent disease. Speaking of graveyards, let's talk about ant funerals because yes, ants have funerals. When an ant dies, it releases a chemical called oleic acid. This is the death pheromone. As soon as other ants smell it, they know someone's died. And they don't just leave the body there. That would spread disease. No, they pick up the corpse and carry it to the designated cemetery area. Scientists did a messed up experiment. They put oleic acid on a living ant. The other ants immediately picked up that ant, even though it was very much alive and struggling, and carried it to the graveyard. The living ant was like, "Guys, I'm not dead." But the others were like, "Sorry, you smell dead. Off to the cemetery you go." Eventually, the oleic acid wore off, and the ant was allowed back. But imagine being declared dead while you're still alive. That's an ant's worst nightmare. The cemetery is usually located far from the main nest. Dead ants are piled up in specific areas, and the workers avoid those zones unless they're disposing of another body. It's respectful. It's organized. It's more dignified than how some humans handle death. By 11 a.m., new tunnels have been dug, chambers have been expanded, and the colony's infrastructure has improved. Now it's time for the soldiers to earn their keep. Ants are not peaceful creatures. They're tiny, ruthless war machines. and their conflicts make human wars look tame. Soldier ants are bigger than workers. They have massive mandibles that can crush, cut, and kill. Some species have soldiers with heads so large they can't even feed themselves. Worker ants have to vomit food into the soldiers' mouths because their jaws are too big to handle regular food. They're living weapons, and that's their entire purpose. The soldiers patrol the borders of the colony's territory. Any intruder is immediately attacked. And I don't mean chased away. I mean brutally murdered. Ants don't do warning shots. They go straight for the kill. But the real horror begins when two colonies go to war. Ant wars are genocidal, strategic, and absolutely merciless. Some species practice slave raiding. Let me explain how this works because it's genuinely disturbing. A raiding party of soldier ants attacks a neighboring colony. Their goal isn't to kill everyone. It's to kidnap the babies. They storm the nursery, grab as many pupae and larvae as they can carry, and bring them back to their own colony. When those stolen babies hatch, they don't know they've been kidnapped. They just see the ants around them and think, "Oh, this is my family." They grow up working for their captors, never knowing they were stolen. It's actual, literal slavery. And it's been happening in the ant world for millions of years. Some ant species have become so dependent on slaves that they can't survive without them. They've lost the ability to feed themselves, dig their own nests, or even take care of their own young. They've evolved into professional kidnappers who rely entirely on stolen labor. If their slaves revolt or die, the entire colony collapses. It's dystopian. Then there are the suicide bombers. Certain species of ants have evolved a horrifying defense mechanism. When they're losing a battle, some soldiers run into the middle of enemy forces and deliberately rupture their own bodies. They explode. Their guts spray everywhere, releasing toxic chemicals that kill or incapacitate nearby enemies. It's a kamikaze attack. They sacrifice themselves to save the colony. Imagine being so loyal to your job that you're willing to literally explode for it. That's next-level dedication. Or insanity. Probably both. And then there are the Argentinian ants. These guys have created the largest empire on Earth. I'm not exaggerating. There's a super colony of Argentinian ants that stretches over 6,000 kilometers across Europe. That's right, 6,000 kilometers. One colony. Billions and billions of ants. All working together. All descended from the same queen lineage. How is this possible? Because they stopped fighting each other. Normally, ants from different colonies are enemies. But Argentinian ants from the super colony recognize each other as family, no matter where they're from. An ant from Spain can meet an ant from Italy, and they'll cooperate like old friends. They've essentially created the European Union, except it actually works. This super colony is constantly at war with other ant species, and it's winning. It's wiping out native ants, taking over territory, and expanding every year. It's an unstoppable empire built on cooperation and conquest. By noon, the soldiers have patrolled, fought off intruders, and maybe even launched a raid on a neighboring colony. It's been a violent morning, but the day is far from over. Now let's talk about something that will completely change how you see ants. They're not just warriors and workers. They're also farmers and ranchers. And they've been doing it for millions of years before humans even existed. Leafcutter ants are the ultimate farmers. These ants don't eat leaves. Instead, they cut leaves into small pieces, carry them underground, chew them into pulp, and use that pulp to grow fungus. The fungus is what they actually eat. They've created underground fungus gardens that they tend to like crops. Think about that. They harvest raw materials, process them, use them to cultivate a food source, and then harvest that food source. That's agriculture. That's farming. And they've been doing it for 50 million years. The fungus they grow is a specific species that doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. It's been domesticated by the ants. The ants can't survive without the fungus, and the fungus can't survive without the ants. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship that's been maintained for millions of years. Leafcutter colonies can have up to 8 million ants. They can strip an entire tree of leaves in a single night. They're like a tiny, unstoppable farming corporation. And just like human farmers, they deal with pests. Sometimes, parasitic fungi try to invade their gardens. So the ants have evolved a solution. They've partnered with bacteria that produce antibiotics. The ants carry these bacteria on their bodies and use them to kill the bad fungi. They invented antibiotic farming millions of years before penicillin. But wait, it gets better. Some ants are ranchers. Certain ant species keep aphids like livestock. Aphids are tiny insects that suck sap from plants and excrete a sugary liquid called honeydew. Ants love this stuff. So they protect aphids from predators, move them to better feeding locations, and even build shelters for them. In return, the aphids produce honeydew on demand. When an ant wants a drink, it strokes the aphid with its antennae, and the aphid releases a droplet of honeydew. It's like milking a cow, except the cow is the size of a grain of rice, and the milk is bug poop. But still, it's ranching. Some ants take this even further. They bring aphid eggs into their nests during winter to protect them. When spring comes, they carry the baby aphids back outside and place them on fresh plants. They're literally raising livestock from birth. If aliens visited Earth and saw ants farming fungus and ranching aphids, they'd probably think ants were the dominant intelligent species. And honestly, they wouldn't be wrong. By 1 p.m., the farmers have tended their gardens, the ranchers have milked their aphids, and everyone's had lunch. Which, of course, involved more vomiting. The afternoon is more of the same. Workers are foraging. Soldiers are patrolling. Nurses are feeding larvae. The queen is still laying eggs because she never, ever stops. But let's talk about something you probably don't know. Ants sleep. Kind of. They don't sleep like humans do. They don't have a circadian rhythm. They don't curl up in a bed for 8 hours. Instead, they take hundreds of tiny power naps throughout the day. Each nap lasts about 1 minute. A worker ant might nap 250 times in a 24-hour period, totaling about 4 hours of sleep. But here's the weird part. They don't all sleep at the same time. That would leave the colony vulnerable. Instead, they take turns. It's like a rotating shift schedule, except nobody's managing it. It just happens naturally through chemical signals and individual behavior. Queens, on the other hand, sleep more. They can nap for up to 6 minutes at a time and get around 9 hours of total sleep per day. Because apparently, being pregnant for 30 years straight is exhausting. Who knew? While some ants are napping, others are dealing with sanitation. Ants are incredibly clean. They groom themselves constantly, licking their legs and antennae to remove dirt and parasites. They also groom each other, which helps prevent disease from spreading through the colony. Cleanliness isn't just about hygiene. It's about survival. A single infection in a colony of millions can wipe everyone out. So ants have evolved to be obsessive about cleanliness. They're the germaphobes of the insect world. Some ants even produce their own antibiotics. They secrete antimicrobial compounds from glands on their bodies and spread them around the nest. It's like having a built-in hand sanitizer dispenser. Humans discovered antibiotics in 1928. Ants have been using them for millions of years. Now let's talk about the nightmare fuel. Because nature is terrifying, and ants are not exempt from its horrors. There's a fungus called Ophiocordyceps. It's a parasite that specifically targets ants. And what it does is straight out of a horror movie. The fungal spores land on an ant and burrow into its body. The fungus then grows inside the ant, slowly taking over its brain. The infected ant loses control of its own actions. The fungus forces it to climb to a high point, usually a leaf or branch. Once it's in the perfect position, the fungus makes the ant bite down and lock its jaws onto the leaf. Then the ant dies, and the fungus erupts from its head like something out of Alien. A long stalk grows out of the ant's skull and releases more spores to infect other ants. The dead ant becomes a spore distribution tower. This isn't science fiction. This is real. There are actual zombie ants being mind-controlled by fungi right now. And it gets worse. The colony knows when an ant is infected. Healthy ants can smell the fungus and will forcibly remove the infected ant from the nest. Sometimes they'll carry it far away and abandon it. Sometimes they'll kill it to prevent the infection from spreading. It's brutal, but necessary. Then there are the parasitic flies. Some flies lay eggs inside live ants. The eggs hatch, and the larvae eat the ant from the inside out. The ant can feel it happening, but can't do anything about it. Eventually, the larvae emerge, and the ant dies. It's horrifying. And let's not forget the ant lions. These predators dig pit traps in sandy soil and wait at the bottom. When an ant falls in, the ant lion grabs it with massive jaws and drags it underground to be eaten alive. It's like quicksand with teeth. Ants face dangers every single day that would give humans nightmares. And yet they keep going. They keep working. They keep building. Because the colony must survive. By 5 p.m., some ants have been eaten by spiders. Some have been infected by fungi. Some have fallen into ant-lion traps. But the colony moves on. There's no time for grief. There's only survival. As the sun sets, you'd think the colony would slow down. But ants don't follow human schedules. Many species are actually more active at night. Nocturnal ants emerge as the day ants retreat. They take over foraging duties, patrolling, and construction. The colony operates 24/7 with rotating shifts that would make Amazon warehouse workers jealous. Some ants navigate in complete darkness using their antennae and chemical trails. They don't need light. They've evolved to work in pitch-black conditions. It's like having built-in night vision goggles. Night is also when some of the strangest ant behaviors happen. Certain species hold meetings, where groups of ants gather and communicate through antennae touching and chemical exchanges. Scientists still don't fully understand what information is being shared, but it's clearly important. Some ants also engage in what looks like play. Young ants have been observed wrestling with each other, chasing each other, and engaging in mock battles. Is it actually play, or is it training for future combat? Nobody knows, but it's adorable and terrifying at the same time. By 8 p.m., dinner has been served. More vomiting, more communal feeding. The larvae have been fed. The queen has been fed. And somewhere in the nest, those 20% lazy ants are still doing absolutely nothing, living their best life. Night is when the soldiers really earn their keep. Predators are more active in the dark. Raids from enemy colonies are more common. The night shift soldiers are on high alert. Some ant species post guards at every entrance. These guards memorize the chemical signature of their colony members. If an ant approaches that doesn't smell right, it's immediately attacked. It's like having a biometric security system, except it's based on smell instead of fingerprints. Intruders are dealt with swiftly and violently. There's no trial, no negotiation, just instant execution. Ants don't mess around with border security. Inside the nest, maintenance continues. Tunnels are repaired. Chambers are cleaned. The queen is still laying eggs because apparently she's incapable of stopping. Some workers are preparing for tomorrow's foraging missions by organizing the food storage chambers. Others are moving larvae to different temperature zones to ensure optimal development. It's like a 24-hour logistics operation. By 10 p.m., most of the colony is in a rhythm. Workers rotate in and out of tasks. Soldiers patrol. The queen lays eggs. And the lazy ants continue their lifelong vacation. As we approach the end of our 24-hour journey, the colony is preparing for dawn. The night shift workers are finishing their tasks. The day shift workers are starting to wake up. Let's recap what we've witnessed. We've seen a society where 20% of the population does nothing while the rest work themselves to death. We've seen a queen who's both worshipped and imprisoned, condemned to eternal pregnancy. We've seen workers who vomit into each other's mouths as a sign of cooperation. We've seen soldiers who explode themselves to save their colony. We've seen slave raids, brutal wars, and mind-controlling fungi. We've seen farmers who've been cultivating crops for 50 million years. Ranchers who've domesticated other insects. Architects who build cities without blueprints. Navigators who use the stars to find their way home. Warriors who fight genocidal wars over territory. Undertakers who carry the dead to designated graveyards. And through it all, the colony survives. It adapts. It thrives. Ants have been on Earth for over 140 million years. They survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. They've outlasted every empire, every civilization, every species that humans have ever documented. There are over 20 quadrillion ants alive right now. That's 20 quadrillion ants. For every human on Earth, there are 2.5 million ants. If ants were the size of humans, we'd be extinct within a week. Their strength, their organization, their complete lack of individual ego, their willingness to die for the collective would make them unstoppable. They'd conquer the planet in months. But they're not our size. They're tiny, easy to overlook, easy to step on, easy to ignore. Until you realize that right now, beneath your feet, there's an entire civilization. A society more organized than any government, more efficient than any corporation, more brutal than any military, and more successful than any species except maybe bacteria. They're farmers, warriors, builders, nurses, undertakers, and slavers. They're victims and survivors. They're individuals, and they're the collective. They're beautiful, and they're horrifying. So the next time you see an ant crawling across your floor, don't squash it. Stop. Watch it. Appreciate it. Because you're looking at a member of the most successful society on planet Earth. A society that's been thriving for 140 million years. A society that will probably still be here long after humans are gone. This has been 24 hours in the life of ants. The most underrated, overpowered, and absolutely insane creatures on Earth. Thanks for watching. Now go outside and look at the ground. Really look. There's an entire world down there that you've been ignoring your whole life. And it's incredible. If you made it this far, you're officially part of the Ant Appreciation Club. Hit that subscribe button because we're diving into more insane animal societies. Next up, what if spiders were the size of dogs? You don't want to miss that nightmare. Like this video if ants now terrify and amaze you at the same time. And drop a comment telling me which fact blew your mind the most. Was it the vomit sharing? The zombie fungus? Or the fact that 20% of ants are literally useless? Share this with someone who needs to appreciate the tiny creatures ruling our planet. See you in the next one.